Open to receive everything flowing in, ooh, so easily. Arms wide and ready, yeah, naturally. Open to receive. Now open my hands and let the tension go. Everything I blocked before starting now to flow. Open to the money, open to the love, open to the luxury, everything above my expectations of what life can be. Open to receive, that's who I am now, me. Oh, open to receive, that's who I am. Open to receive, everything is planned. Love and wealth and peace, ooh, all flowing in. Open to receive, let it begin. I used to hold so tightly to the fear inside. Now I open every morning, I'm stretched open wide. Receiving comes so naturally to me now. The universe responding, showing me the how. Everything I called in, finding where I live. Open to receive, and so much more to give. Open to receive, that's who I am. Open to receive, everything is planned. Love and wealth and peace, ooh, all flowing in. Open to receive, let it begin. Receiving is my practice every single day. Everything I'm open to finding its own way into my experience, into my life. Open to receive, everything feels right. Abundance, love's an open heart and open hands. Open to receive, everything expands. Open to receive, that's who I am. Open to receive, everything is planned. Love and wealth and peace, ooh, all flowing in. Open to receive, let it begin. I receive the money without any guilt. I receive the luxury, everything that I built. In my mind first, then it showed up here. Open to receive, everything is clear. I became the woman who receives with ease. Open to receive everything I please. Receiving love, receiving ooh, wealth, receiving, yeah, peace. Receiving everything. Open softly, always open, open to receive, always everything flowing, ooh, naturally, yeah, open so beautifully, receiving always. Safe to receive, finally safe. Everything finding me, ooh, every day. Money flowing softly, yeah, naturally. Peace living inside me. safe to receive. Safe, ooh, safe to receive. No more tension holding what was always mine. Everything releasing, so beautifully defined. Soft life in my body, peace in every cell. Universe protecting me, everything is well. Money moving toward me, coming naturally. Every blessing finding exactly where I be. People loving what I create. Every idea elevate. Every door opening right on time. Overflow surrounding me. Peace and wealth feel right. Everything aligning. Morning into night. Safe to receive now. No more tension now. Everything flowing in beautifully. Safe to receive now. Abundance all around. Peace finally found inside me. Money keep flowing. Abundance pouring on me. Everything supporting me. Safe to receive now. Soft life energy, everything working out beautifully. One blow in my evening, everything so divine. Universe always moving, everything aligns. No fear in my energy, only softness here. Everything supporting me, becoming so clear. Money arriving calmly, right where it belongs. Every blessing finding me like words find a song. Unexpected abundance, people loving me. Everything unfolding so effortlessly. Peace settled inside me. No more forcing time. Everything arriving already mine. Safe to receive now. No more tension now. Everything flowing beautifully. Safe to receive now. Abundance all around. Peace finally found inside me. Money keep flowing. Abundance pouring on me. Everything supporting me. Safe to receive now. Soft life energy, everything working out beautifully. I deserve every blessing, no more second guessing. Every lesson leading me into my receiving. Money safe in my presence, overflow every second. Everything so protective of me. My creativity pouring into everything I touch. Every talent multiplying, always more than enough. People investing in me, abundance meeting me. Everything feeling easy, so naturally. No chasing, no forcing. Everything keep pouring. Every season blooming. Safe to receive. Safe to receive now. No more tension now. Everything flows rule. Universe making everything effortless for me. I already became the woman who receives abundance, knows my address and never wants to leave. Peace all in my heartbeat, luxury my skin, everything so comfortable now, letting it all in. Safe to receive, safe to receive. No more tension now, everything flowing in beautifully. Safe to receive now, abundance all around, peace finally found inside me. Money keep flowing, abundance pouring on me, everything supporting me naturally. Safe to receive now, soft life energy, everything working out beautifully. Ease, ease and expansion, everything opening. Ooh, effortlessly expanding into more, yeah, naturally. Abundance flowing easy. Expanding. Ooh, ease and expansion. I live inside my expansion. Everything stretching wide. Every area of my life multiplying inside. Business growing softly. Income on the rise. Everything expanding right before my eyes. Ease is how I move now. No tension in my chest. Expansion is my lifestyle. I already have the best. Ease and expansion, that's how I live. Ease and expansion, everything I give comes back multiplied. Ooh, effortlessly. Ease and expansion, that's my frequency. I wake up and it's flowing, everything aligned. Abundance keeps expanding. Every single time my creativity pouring into everything I touch. Ease is my foundation, and it's always enough. Opportunities finding me from every direction. Expansion is my normal, my natural projection. Ease and expansion, that's how I live. Ease and expansion, everything I give comes back multiplied. Ooh, effortlessly. Ease and expansion, that's my frequency. I stopped making it hard and everything got easy. The universe responded softly and breezy. My income expanding month after month. Ease and expansion, never running out. Every version of me growing into more. Expansion always knocking on every open door. Ease and expansion, that's how I live. Ease and expansion, everything I give comes back multiplied. Ooh, effortlessly. Ease and expansion, that's my frequency. I expand into wealth, I expand abundance finding me. Ooh, naturally, prosperity surrounding me. Already here. Already here. Yeah, already here. I wake up in my blessing every single morning. Everything I visualized already here performing. Soft light on my skin now, peace living inside. Abundance is my address, luxury my guide. Money moving easy into my life. Everything I called in, feeling so right. Already here, everything meant for me. Already here, flowing so naturally. I don't chase, I don't reach, it just finds me. Ooh, already here. I sit inside my overflow, grateful every day. Everything I put out into the universe on its way. Doors keep opening softly, right on time for me. People loving what I create effortlessly. Wealth feels like my normal, peace feels like my skin. Everything I ever wanted already pouring in. Already here, everything meant for me. Already here, flowing so naturally. I don't chase, I don't reach, it just finds me. Ooh, already here. I move through my day knowing everything aligns. Abundance in my morning, everything's so divine. I check my account smiling, nothing feels like lack. Every season bringing more, never taking back. My business growing quietly, my creativity in bloom. Everything I ever called in already filling up my room. Already everything meant for me, everything meant for. Already here, flowing so naturally. I don't chase, I don't reach, it just finds me. Ooh, already here. I pour from my overflow now, never running dry. Everything I put into the world multiplies. Luxury is my everyday, not something far away. Already here, already mine, already here to stay. I became the woman who receives with grace. Abundance is my normal, this is just my space. I release the waiting, it's already here. I release the tension, ooh, already here. Everything I've called in, yes, surrounding me. Softly, sweetly, naturally. Already mine, already here. Already mine. Everything surrounding me so beautifully. finds me, finds me always flowing to me. Ooh, every day naturally coming, yeah, effortlessly. Money finds me. I check my account, smiling, something always there. Money finding me softly from everywhere. Multiple streams flowing all at the same time. Money finds me easily, everything is fine. Unexpected deposits showing up for me. Money finds me always effortlessly. Money finds me wherever I go. Money finds me. Watch it flow, I don't force it. Ooh, I just know money finds me naturally. So my creativity turning into income streams. Money finds me in my sleep, living in my dreams. Every idea I release into the world, money finds me softly. Everything unfurls, passive income building while I live my life. Money finds me always, everything feels right. Money finds me wherever I go. Money finds me. Watch it flow, I don't force it. Ooh, I just know money finds me naturally. So people investing in me, loving what I do. Money finding me from angles completely new. My business attracting everything it needs. Money finds me easily, planting every seed. I am a magnet for everything good. Money finds me always, knew it always would. Money finds me wherever I go. Money finds me. Watch it flow, I don't force it. Ooh, I just know money finds me naturally. So I hold money softly, it stays close to me. Money finds me always so beautifully. Every month expanding more than month before. Money finds me always knocking on my door. I became the woman money loves to find. Abundance is my energy, peace is in my mind. Finding me, always finding me from every direction. Ooh, so naturally I am a magnet, yeah, effortlessly. Money finds me softly, always. Money finds me, always flowing to me. Ooh, naturally, yeah, finds me so beautifully. Money always. Luxury, my normal now. Everything's soft, ooh, all around. Living in it daily, yeah, naturally. Luxury surrounding me. I wake up in luxury every single day. Soft sheets and still mornings, everything my way. Candles on the counter, low light in my room. Luxury is my normal. It arrived right on cue. Nothing feels feels like struggle. Everything feels right. Luxury is my morning. Luxury is my night. Luxury is my normal, not a dream anymore. Luxury is my normal. Abundance at my door. Soft and rich and peaceful. Ooh, this is my life. Luxury is my normal. Everything feels right. Money arriving softly into my account. Luxury surrounding everything, more than I could count. I move through my days with ease and with grace. Luxury is my normal. This is just my space. High quality everything. That's just how I live. Luxury is my normal, and I have so much to give. Luxury is my normal, not a dream anymore. Luxury is my normal. Abundance at my door. Soft and rich and peaceful. Ooh, this is my life. Luxury is my normal. Everything feels right. I carry myself different since I shifted my mind. Luxury follows my energy every single time. No more settling for anything less. Luxury is my normal. I already have the best. Everything I touch elevates somehow. Luxury is my normal, and it's happening now. Not a dream anymore. Luxury is my normal. Abundance at my door. Soft and rich and peaceful. Ooh, this is my life. Luxury is my normal. Everything feels right. Generational wealth building quietly in the back. Luxury is my normal now, and I'm never going back. Everything elevated, every area of life. Luxury is my normal. Soft and rich and right. I became the woman who lives in overflow. Luxury is my normal, and I let it show. Normal used to mean less. Now it means more. Normal used to mean closed. Ooh, now every door opens for me softly, yeah, naturally. Luxury is just my life now. Beautifully. Luxury is my normal. Every day, soft and abundant. Ooh, every way, yeah, my normal. So beautifully. Luxury, always. Soft power. Living in it. Everything bending, ooh, gently. Abundance in my stillness, yeah, naturally. Soft power, that's me. I walk into every room and everything shifts. Not because I'm loud, but because of this energy so certain, calm and so secure. Soft power is my language, abundance is my cure. Everything I want comes without a fight. Soft power in the morning, soft power in the night. Soft power, that's how I move. Soft power, nothing to prove. Abundance following, ooh, everywhere I go. Soft power in my soul. I don't raise my voice and I don't have to. Everything I desire already coming through. Wealth attracted to my calm, prosperity to my peace. Soft power is the reason everything increased. People drawn to my energy without knowing why. Soft power is my secret underneath the sky. Soft power, that's how I move. That's how I move. Soft power, nothing to prove. Abundance following, ooh, everywhere I go. Soft power in my soul. I move like still water, deep and so clear. Soft power attracting everything I hold dear. My silence speaks volumes, my presence does the work. Soft power is my nature, abundance is my worth. Every door opens, every path aligns. Soft power is my normal, everything is mine. Soft power, that's how I move. That's how I move. Soft power, nothing to prove. Protect my energy like it's everything because it is. Soft power is the ring around my whole life, keeping it aligned. Soft power is my frequency, everything is fine. I became the woman still and so sure. Soft power, living always and more still. Uncertain, unhurried, ooh, abundant. Soft power is not weakness, yeah, it's everything. Stillness, softly, powerfully mine. Always mine. Soft power, everything following, ooh, so divine. Soft power, so powerfully, so powerfully. Soft power always. Open to receive. Everything flowing in, ooh, so easily. Arms wide and ready, yeah, naturally. Open to receive. My birthright. Wealth is mine, always was, ooh, by design. Abundance in my blood, yeah, naturally. Wealth is my birthright. I was designed for abundance, it's written in my cells. Wealth is my birthright, every single exhale. I live inside my inheritance every single day. Wealth finding me softly in every single way. Nothing about this is lucky, everything is aligned. Wealth is my birthright by universal design. Wealth is my birthright, always has been. Wealth is my birthright. is my birthright, and I finally see I don't have to earn the right to overflow. Abundance is my nature, everywhere I go. My lineage is changing, starting right here. Wealth is my birthright, everything is clear. Wealth is my birthright, always has been. Wealth is my birthright, let the overflow begin. I was designed for this, ooh, this level of abundance. Wealth is my birthright, no more running from it. I claim it without apology, I hold it without shame. Wealth is my birthright, and I finally came into the fullness of everything I am. Wealthy by alignment, that was always the plan. Every cell in my body knows abundance is home. Wealth is my birthright, I have always known. Wealth is my birthright, always has been. Wealth is my birthright, let the overflow begin. I was designed for this, ooh, this level of abundance. Wealth is my birthright, no more running from it. Legacy building quietly in everything I touch. Wealth is my birthright, and there's always enough. I'm moving my abundance, grounded and sure. Wealth is my birthright, always and more. I became the woman who knows what she's worth. Wealth is my birthright, given at birth. Born for abundance, by design. Born for overflow, ooh, always mine. This is my inheritance, yeah, I claim every piece. Wealth is my birthright, and so is peace. Softly, always. Wealth is my birthright, always, by design. Ooh, mine, yeah, birthright, so naturally. Wealth, always, still, prosperous. Peace inside, ooh, effortless. Abundance in my quiet, yeah, naturally. Still and prosperous. I found my abundance in my stillness. Not in the rush and not in the business. Still and prosperous, that's my way. Everything arriving every single day. Peace and wealth together, living inside me. Still and prosperous, so beautifully. Still and prosperous, that's who I am. Still and prosperous, part of the plan. Peace and abundance, ooh, together in me. Still and prosperous, naturally. Prosperity doesn't need my exhaustion. Wealth flows to stillness, no question. question. I sit in my knowing that it's all aligned, still and prosperous every single time. My calm is productive, my peace is power. Abundance blooms for me every single hour. Still and prosperous, that's who I am. Still and prosperous, part of the plan. Peace and abundance, ooh, together in me. Still and prosperous, naturally. I don't perform my wealth, I just live it. I don't announce abundance, I just give it. Still waters running deep, rich beneath the surface. Still and prosperous, everything has purpose. My stillness is attractive to everything good. Still and prosperous, knew it always was. Still and prosperous, that's who I am. Still and prosperous, part of the plan. Peace and abundance, ooh, together in me. Still and prosperous, naturally. I trust the unfolding of everything mine. Still and prosperous, everything divine. No rush in the harvest, no force in the bloom. Everything arriving right on time, and soon I became the woman rooted and sure. Still and prosperous, always and more. In my stillness, I receive in my quiet. Ooh, I believe everything comes, yeah, to those who rest. Still and prosperous, always blessed. Still and prosperous, forever in the quiet. Ooh, everything, yeah. Still so beautifully prosperous, always. Overflow season is here now. Everything multiplying, ooh, somehow more than I expected. Yeah, naturally, my overflow season. Overflow, everything multiplied. Every area of my life expanding deep and wide. More money than I planned for, more love than I knew. My overflow season, everything is new. Better than I imagined, richer than I dreamed. My overflow season, everything it seemed. My overflow season is right now. My overflow season, showing me how abundance pours freely. Ooh, and I trust my overflow season, always and plus. Unexpected blessings finding me daily. My overflow season, never feeling maybe, always feeling certain, always feeling sure. My overflow season, always giving more. Every month expanding, more than month before. My overflow season, knocking at the door. My overflow season is right now. give away keeps the blessings in flow. My overflow season has no end in sight. Everything expanding morning, noon, and night. Creativity overflowing into everything. My overflow season. What a beautiful thing. My overflow season is right now. My overflow season. My overflow season. Showing me how abundance pours freely. Ooh, when I trust my overflow season. Always in place. I became the woman who lives in excess of everything beautiful, everything blessed. My overflow season is just how I live. More than enough to keep and more than enough to give. Abundance overflowing into every space. My overflow season, the most beautiful place. Overflow in my finances. Overflow in peace. Overflow